Hello there folks, how you doing? It's a mucky day out there. I'm in the gear room today. I've pushed the bikes to the back to give me a bit of space. I've got this old commuter bike. It must be, I'm guessing, 15, 18 years old. It was kicking about at the back of the shed and I thought, I wonder if I can do something with it. So I spent a few hours on it, pumped up the tyres, oiled it up, adjusted the gears, adjusted the brakes, and actually I got it going, but it got me to thinking, I wonder if I can do something with it. I've been interested in a bike for light touring, or maybe, I don't know, what do they call these bikes, cyclocross, gravel bikes? A bike that you can do a little bit of work on mixed terrain with. Perhaps mostly road or reasonable track, but when the going gets a bit rougher, a bit bumpy, you can keep cycling. Anyhow, I looked at these bikes online and boy, they're expensive. And you can see I've already got a collection of bikes, so what I possibly don't need is another bike, but hey, you can't have too many. So what I did, I had a look in my bike box to see if I've got some bits and pieces, and I had a wee look online and I set myself a very modest budget to see if I could get some bits and pieces together to convert this old commuter bike into something that I might be able to use for a bit of light touring. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm not sure I'll get it finished today, but I'm going to have a wee go at it. So it's got a quill stem in it which is out of line, so I need to have a go at lining that up, and most of the other stuff seems to be reasonably okay. I need to have a think about whether I'm going to change the chain and the gear rings. They're reasonably worn, but they seem serviceable, so I've already taken this for a wee spin and it seems to be running okay. So, but the geometry, that sounds like I know what I'm talking about. The riding position is not very comfortable on it. It's okay for a short commute, you know, nipping through the village or around town, but it's not a bike that I would want to spend any decent amount of time riding. So I need to do something about that. But I've got some ideas, I've got some tricks up my sleeve that I might be able to bring into play to make it a little bit more comfortable. So let's stop blethering and see if there's something I can do with this. First and arguably most important jobs in converting this commuter bike into a light touring bike is to give it a new set of boots, to change the tyres. So you can see that this is a fairly soft tyre, very non-aggressive tread pattern and quite narrow. I think it's 28 by 1 3/8. What is that in new money? I think that's either 37 or 39. So 622 tyre. So what I wanted to do was to stay with the same kind of tyre. These are Continental tyres, and I'm a big fan of Continental. I used Continental tyres when I was living in southwest China, and I was doing literally thousands of kilometres through the mountains on tracks and roads, and I was using a tyre that is very similar in the tread pattern to that, just a little bit more aggressive and a little bit stiffer with some better anti-puncture protection. So I was able to track some down, and this is them. So I think this is 42622, so it's, I don't know what that is in old money. I think it's probably about 1 3/4 or something like that. So a much stiffer tyre, very similar tread pattern, but just a fair bit more aggressive, with bigger lugs on the side and deeper tread grooving. So I'm going to change this for this. That might mean that the mudguards on my old commuter bike will have to go, and I'm not particularly worried about that. They may actually fit, but if they don't, I'm not overly concerned about it, and I might actually just take them off anyway. What I am hoping is that there's enough space here in the rear triangle to fit these wider tyres, but I think it should be okay. I have to confess that I didn't measure before I ordered these, so it's going to be a case of try it and see. However, this is quite a big frame on this bike, you might have noticed that, and because of that the rear triangle is fairly large, and there's quite a generous distance between this cross stay and where the tyre ends, although you can see that this tyre is not only a little bit broader, but it's also a little bit deeper as well. Instead of blethering about it, why don't we fit it and see how we get on. So that's one of the first, and perhaps, as I say, one of the most important jobs. I've got some new tubes as well, but I just took that tube out and had a look at it, and it's pretty new, so I think I might just put that tube back in again and keep the new tubes for spares when I'm out and about. A wee tip, folks, if you've got directional tyres on your bike and you're changing them over, before you take the old tyre off, if you just put a wee arrow, the direction of travel on the wheel, then when you're fitting the new tyres, it makes it a whole lot easier. You don't have to scratch your head, especially when the bike is upside down or you've got a set of cogs on the back. You don't have to figure out which way round does this tyre go. If you've got an arrow, it'll help you there. Well, folks, it fits. It's not got a lot of clearance. Interestingly, the clearance at the sides is okay, but because the tyres are much deeper, the clearance at the back is minimal. But I can lose the mudguards, like I say, which I'm probably going to do anyway, and that will give me a little bit extra space, so I think it's a success. Lost you for a wee while there, folks. The GoPro was out of power, so I had to take it indoors and charge the battery, but I kept on working. And basically what I've been doing is, well, I can show you, I think. I've been systematically going round the bike, replacing all these rusty nuts and bolts, and really just beefing it up a little bit, hopefully making it a little bit more reliable. I've also taken the mudguards off, although I think I might have captured a wee bit of that on film just before the camera died. So I've got a lightweight rear carrier on this, but I plan to keep it because the idea of this bike is to travel light and maybe to travel a little bit faster, certainly to travel lighter and faster than I would when I'm going out on my fat bike. So these thinner tyres, although I've beefed them up a little bit as well, it's still got a lot less rolling resistance than these big 4.5-inch tyres that are on the bike behind me there. So I've gone round, I've changed a lot of the nuts and the bolts. I've had a good look at the chain and the cranks and the rear cassette, and it's all looking reasonably good, to be honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a wee bit more air in the tyres, and looks like the rain's off actually, although it's still pretty cold and miserable out there. But I'll take it for a wee spin round the block and I'll see how the gears are operating. If the gears are not working very well, then it probably makes sense just to go a little bit further and replace the rear cassette and replace the cranks and the chain. But because they're only part worn, I'm hoping that a little bit of adjustment on the gears, I can get it all running smoothly and we'll be good to go. If that's the case, I've still got a wee bit of my budget left, and what I might do is I might replace the saddle. I'd quite like to do that. I'd quite like to put a leather saddle on. Now I could easily just take the Brooks saddle off my fat bike and put it on there as a temporary thing and then swap it between the bikes. In fact, my old Brooks saddle that I bought in a second-hand shop when I was in my 20s, I think, and oh man, I must have got 20 years out of that saddle. That's what I did. I tended just to, I was running several bikes at that time, and I tended just to swap the saddle from bike to bike. The seat post on this bike is a wee bit different from the seat post on that bike, so it's not just a case of taking the whole seat post out and slipping it in. So I can't do it quick release. I've got to do it with tools and actually take the saddle off. Anyway, we'll check the budget and we'll see if we can afford a nice leather saddle. It won't be a Brooks saddle, but I know that there's one or two other companies make quite nice saddles and they're not as expensive as the Brooks. And the other thing that I want to do, whether or not I change the saddle, I want to pull it back on the rails there so that I've got this kind of really relaxed upright riding position. So I'm going to crack on, do a wee bit more here, then I'll go for a wee spin, and I think I'll call it a day after that. Then we'll get back to it. I'm not sure if we'll get back to it tomorrow. I need to catch up on a little bit of gardening. I've got a few things to do around the house as well. But it's been a nice way to spend a wet day, so I hope you have enjoyed it so far. And we will take this bike for a wee spin together. I promise you that. So let me crack on for a wee while now, folks. We'll get back to you later. Hello there, folks. Can you hear me above the sound of the rain? It's pattering down on the garage door above your head there. It's been a mucky old day, but it's been a productive day. I've been out in the garden all day planting. It's the perfect conditions for planting. Good for the plants. It might not be so good for me, but I've got quite a lot done, and I will show you the garden at some point, but there's not a great deal to see just now because I'm planting mostly perennials, and they're either still at soil level or just a wee bit above soil level, so I'll leave it for a few weeks till they grow up a little bit, and then I'll show you the garden and give you an idea of what I'm trying to do with it. But I'm here now, I'm in the dry, I'm in the gear room, and I'm getting back to this project where I'm trying to convert this old commuter bike into something suitable for light touring, where I can get onto the road and the tracks. So, I mentioned the last time that I was quite keen to do something with the saddle. I'm trying to keep to a fairly strict budget on this. I'm trying to keep the conversion cost as low as possible, but I would like to put a leather saddle on. So I've been looking at the internet. I would love to put a Brooks saddle on, the same as is on my fat bike, but there is no way that I can justify doing that. They're just too expensive, and it kind of it blows the concept of what I'm trying to achieve here in building a light touring bike on a fairly tight budget. But I did find something on the internet, so here it is here. I got this through the post the other day in a fancy box, and when I opened the fancy box there's a fancy bag inside, and it says Rupert's London, and inside this lovely bag, which will be really useful actually. I might be able to keep my GoPros or some of my camera gear in that when I'm out and about in the hills. I have this leather saddle. I think they call it the Hackney saddle, I think. Does it tell me on this? No, it doesn't. But I think there's a clue to the origins of this saddle on the inside. I'm not 100% certain, but I think this saddle may have been manufactured in Taiwan. There's certainly Chinese character in there. It comes with a wee natty sachet of saddle soap as well, so I can give it a bit of treatment before I go out in the rain. Although I'm hoping that the rain's going to stop before we take this bike out for a spin. But I'm really impressed with the quality of this. This is a beautiful saddle, and it came at a fraction of the cost of my Brooks saddle. I think I could have bought 4 of these for the cost of my Brooks. And let's be clear, it's not a Brooks saddle, but it's a lovely piece of equipment, and I'm really keen to fit it to the bike. The saddle that is on the bike has a suspension, a fairly basic suspension seat post, and what I want to do is I want to take that out. So I've also invested a wee bit of money into replacement seat post. I've not got enough hands here. Complete with seat bracket on it. So it's very simply a case of bolting that onto there and then dropping the whole thing down once I've taken that one out. But that is a little bit longer than I need, and I want to reduce the size of that a little bit. So it's always a good idea to buy a little bit bigger, because you can shorten them but you can't lengthen them. And you can see that this is a big frame, so this is going to be because I want to change the riding position of this bike, and I want the saddle to be down and the handlebars to be a bit higher. I'm going to drop the saddle the full way, so I can take a reasonable amount of this seat tube off with the saw. So I think that's the first job to do, and then strip this off, pop it in, adjust it up and see how we get on with it. So shall we crack on with that? So I've cut that down a little bit, folks, taken that much off. That's the machine finished end, and that's the cut end. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a wee chamfer on it, smoothing it off. Really need to do that, but makes a nice finish for it. So it's just a case now, fitting the saddle to there, take this one off and we'll drop it in. So let's crack on. So I'm fairly particular about my preferred seat position, folks. I know what I like. What I'm looking for is the seat to be, how can I describe it, more or less level but very slightly raised at the front, just the bead just crossing the line. So I don't know what that is, about 1/8 of a bead or something like that. Let me show you. Apologies for the shaky camera angle, folks, and the sound of the wood pigeon in the background. So you can see the bead is just off the line there, just crossing the line, indicating that the saddle has got a slight back slope on it. That's just perfect for me. Well, folks, I've got to say I'm quite pleased with the way the bike is turning out. You saw me fiddling around with the saddle there to get the level and the position just the way that I want it. And I've done the same with the bars. Now when I was riding this as a commuter bike, I had a completely different setup. Let's see if I can find all the bits and pieces here. So I had these really simple, narrow, flat bars. And when I was riding around in the city, this is how I rode. Just pretty conventional. But once I got beyond the city limits and I could drop my head, I had these sort of tri-bar extensions on it, so I could, this bit here takes a cup and your forearm goes in the cup, you grip the front of this, you lean forward, you get your head down and your backside in the air and off you go flying down the road. So it was a great setup, quite a fast setup for you know, a relatively modest bike. But this is absolutely not what I wanted for my light touring bike, if I can get away with calling it that. However, when I changed these bars over, I knew that there was a problem with the stem. This is an old-fashioned quill stem, and basically what it is, it's a stem that goes down into this piece here. There's an offset oval in there. This threaded rod goes down into that and it pulls the oval and it locks it into this barrel here and it stops everything moving. And it really was locked. It was absolutely locked solid, and it was slightly out of line, just enough to annoy me. So you saw me fiddling around with the saddle. You know that I like to get things just so for maximum enjoyment out of the bike, and I really needed to do something about this. So let me tell you what I did rather than show you, because I've already corrected it. So what did I do? Well, the first thing I did was I took the wheel off, and then I used this piece of wood here underneath the front forks. So I put that flat on the ground, dropped the bike down. I actually kept the back wheel on, and the forks were sitting on that to protect them. Oh, I kicked that over just now. That reminds me, what I did the night before was I sprayed top and bottom with release oil, and then in the morning I tried to see if it was free at all, but it was still absolutely jammed. So, getting back to the story, I put that piece of wood on the ground, took the front wheel off, dropped the forks down, and I just put the forks just sitting like that on there, just to protect the ends of the forks. And then I undid this just a couple of turns, not too much, and I put that on there, and then I used this lead-filled hammer, and I just gave it a really good thump, and then tried it again. And actually I only needed to hit it once. I did hit it quite hard though, and it was just enough to free it, and then I was able to undo the nut a little bit more, get everything lined up, tighten it all back up again. Now there is a danger in shocking it in that way, and that is that I could have stripped the threads at the bottom. So I'm not advocating this as a good technique, but if everything else has failed, I did wonder about heating it and trying all sorts of other things. Maybe this was the impatient route, and I maybe went down the impatient route a little bit too early, but it worked. And I've done it before. It's not the first time that I've done it, so I know that there's a risk involved and that you could actually do some damage, but I thought it's worth trying. So I'm not sure if that's a hack or a tip or a technique or something to be avoided, but as I say, it worked for me, and it allowed me to get these bars beautifully lined up, the saddle beautifully lined up, and a little tiny little bit of a back lean on it. Handlebars are tilted just up a little bit. These old hand grips that I've got, when I put them back on, I've got a thumb, and the meaty part of your hand can go down there. Perfect. So I'm really looking forward to taking this bike out for a bit of a spin, folks, but before that I'm going to need some luggage. I was looking online at the bike packing equipment, but it's beyond the budget of this particular project. In my mind at least, this project is about taking a bike that you might have kicking about in the garage or at the back of a shed someplace and giving it a little bit of attention, giving it a little bit of love, spending a wee bit of money on it, working to a modest budget, and seeing if you can convert it into a bike that is suitable for some light touring, both on road and a little bit of off-road stuff as well. And so really that rules out investing in expensive bike luggage. But I have been looking online and I've come up with what I think might be a workable solution. So I've ordered some stuff from a military surplus supplier. It's in transit just now, so I can't show you it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind the project up for a wee while. Not the video, so stick with me. Because I'm taking the van out. The van is just on the driveway over your shoulder there. I'm taking the van out tomorrow for a few days. So I'm going to have a break from my gardening and I'm going to have a wee break from this project while I wait on the luggage arriving. Once I get back from my wee road trip, which is only going to be a few days, maybe a bit of hill walking, a bit of fishing, so there'll probably be a video before this one. Can't believe it, using a video to plug my own videos. Anyhow, where were we? Get myself lost. I've got some luggage on order. I'm going to show you that. As soon as it arrives, we'll carry on with the build and then we'll see if we can get the bike out for a wee spin. Hey folks, how you doing? I'm back at this bike again. Excuse me for sniffing, it's a bit cold out there. I've been working away in the garden. Again, I am going to show you this garden at some point, but you know what this is? I've got a delivery from the postie today. This is the bags that I ordered some luggage for this bike so that eventually we can get out and take it for a spin. So what have we got? Now these are second hand, so that's some wee mini panniers, and I've got a plan for them. I was going to put them on there, something like that. I'll have to figure out how all these clips and everything work. It looks quite complicated. So I'm hoping that I might be able to just use these as bar bags. Let me figure that out later. And here's the bigger ones. And they are just going to go across there like that. These ones are military surplus unused, and these ones are military surplus used. So I don't know what that is. That's just a litre and a half, maybe a couple of litres. And I think these are about maybe 5 or 6 litres in each side. Wee pockets inside, a wee pocket on the back there as well. I'm not sure if that's big enough to take a water bottle, but just about big enough for a telephone, I think. So there we are. Luggage. Right, I'm going to go in, put the kettle on, get a cup of tea. I packed a bit of luggage on this bike, folks. Should we take it for a spin? Why don't we do that? Well folks, taking the bike for a spin. I'm on the island of Kerala in the Inner Hebrides. I drove across, if you're wondering, I didn't cycle all the way. I drove across country this morning and parked up in Oban, which was quite challenging. I drove around and around and around and I couldn't find any place to leave the car. And eventually I saw an old gentleman working away in the front of a B&B, and I asked him, do you have any parking? And he said, let me go and check with the boss. That was his exact words. And he went away and his wife came out and said, we're not fully booked until next week, so there's a space in the car park, you're welcome to park there. So thumbs up to them for their hospitality. I did give them something for their trouble, but they didn't want it. So I got the car parked and cycled from Oban down to the weeest Calmac ferry in Scotland, the little ferry that goes across from the mainland to the island of Kerala. Cycled down the track. On the road, the bike was handling really well. I was very impressed with this old machine. It's not doing so well on the tracks. It's creaking and groaning a little bit, but this is the worst of the track cycling that I've got. I've got a wee route in mind. We'll see if we can get all the way around it. I'm not sure actually. If these creaks and groans get any worse, I might have to do something about it. But for now it's holding up. It might look reasonably heavily laden, but in fact it isn't. I've got a simple shelter tonight, I've got a sleep system, I've got a pot and a stove, a bit of gas, and a wee bit of pasta. I hope you can hear me, it's a bit breezy here. But it's getting late in the day folks, I need to get my tent up. I've got a tiny little fishing rod with me. I lost my telescopic rod actually just fishing over there. Was that last year? Seems like an age ago. But I've got my kayak rod with me, which is a wee short rod, and I've got a very lightweight reel, so I'll give it a cast or two, but the high tide is not until I think it's close to midnight, and I'll be tucked up in my sleeping bag before then. So it's not a fishing trip, it's a cycling trip. And it might not be a cycling trip if this bike breaks down on me. But so far, so good. So let's see where the journey takes us. But for now, I'm going to get this tent up. If you're wondering about me wearing these ancient old gaiters for cycling folks, it's because the ticks are pretty bad this year. So I've sprayed them with this 50% DEET, and what I'm going to do now is just spray around the outside edge of the tent, try and reduce the likelihood of picking up any ticks on this trip. I don't like spraying the DEET directly onto the fabric of the outer of the tent. I don't mind putting a wee bit on the inner. I don't think it's very good for the waterproofing of the outer.
So just a little bit round in the airspace between the tent and the inner. I'll go in and I'll put a wee bit in the inner. Hopefully that'll do. I can see you better now, folks. When I was setting up the tent there, I was trying to set up some camera angles, but my vision was blurred. I put on so much sunscreen this afternoon, and I was sweating a bit, running backwards and forwards, picking up the camera and getting down the track. My glasses got smeared with sunscreen and I couldn't see anything. So apologies if the camera angles are not brilliant. Actually, I'm sitting looking at the camera now and I'm not very sure if it's level. So I built a wee wall here, and I've got the camera tucked down behind the tent because there's a wee bit of a breeze tonight, which is grand because it will keep the midges away. There are one or two about. So I'm sitting here deliberating, debating with myself about how far to push that bike, because I might literally be pushing it if it breaks down. We'll just go for a spin and see where the wheels take us. What's the worst that can happen, folks? Let's not dwell on that. So you can see I'm cooking up my pasta before I try a go at the fishing. That maybe tells you something about my confidence of catching a fish tonight. So I've got some pasta with tomato and basil sauce. I'm not sure actually. I didn't bring the packaging with me, keeping the weight down for a change. And I've got some grated Italian hard cheese. And actually I've got some dessert, folks. I picked up a tin of mandarin segments in the garage. I had to stop and get some fuel on the way here, and an impulse buy, I saw it sitting there and I thought, oh, some fruit for dessert. I knew there was a wee bit space left in my little mini panniers on the front there, my bar bags or whatever they're called. Very nice. So I'm going to have this, have a cup of tea, have my dessert, then I might just chill out for a wee while. Excuse me, talking about my mouth full. I'll turn the camera off, folks, while I have my dinner. I'll get back to you in a wee while. Well folks, that's my dinner done and dusted. I enjoyed that. I've tidied up the camp. In fact, I've put most of my gear back into the bike bags. I don't want to be taking any unnecessary gear from the outside to the inside of the tent. I really just want to try and reduce the risk of taking any ticks into the tent. So I built myself a wee bike rack here. I repacked the bike. I've left my little dry stain dike for the morning because I need to get a cup of coffee on the go to give me the boost to get out of here. So this video came about because of this bike, which, truth be told, was just getting in my way. It was at the back of the gear room, and I seemed to be forever moving it around to get to whatever was stored in behind it, and I needed to do something about that. I either needed to give it away or throw it away, or as I decided to do, I invested a wee bit of money and attempted to convert a pretty old commuter bike into a light touring bike. So was it a success? Well, I'm not really that sure. It certainly wasn't very happy coming down the track there. It was kind of pinging and it was twisting. It just didn't feel the right tool for the job, if I'm being honest with you folks. But I'm not complaining, it got me here, and what a beautiful spot to camp. Just glorious. And when I've finished weathering, I can go and have a cast or two. But if I've been a little bit underwhelmed by the bike, I've been greatly impressed by my luggage. So this is old military surplus gear. This stuff actually, the bags on the back, which is the ones that I'm most impressed with, these are absolutely brilliant. They're military surplus but unused, so they're in beautiful condition and they're big enough. So in here I've got what's in this one? See if I can remember. This is like a memory test for myself now. So I've got another layer. I've got a thermal layer in case it gets colder tonight, although it looks like I'm not going to need it. And then on top of that I've got a water bottle because I knew that I was going to be camping in an area where there's no water. So that is sitting in there, and actually there's quite a lot of room still in there. It's not packed in properly. What also fits in there is my sleeping mat and my wee pillow. That goes in there quite nicely. On the other side I've got my cook set, and I brought my entire cook set. I didn't bother stripping it down, which I could have done for this trip, but I just put the whole thing in. And I've got one of the larger gas canisters just because I had a supply of them in the gear room, and I'm actually out of the smaller ones, and it fits in there, and there's a little bottle retainer and it fits in there perfectly, almost as if it's made for it, which it might be, who knows. And I've got my stove in there, and then on top of that I've got a set of lightweight waterproofs. I've got some Packlight, I've got Packlight trousers and a Packlight jacket in there. And then there's wee pockets on them, so they're a matching pair, so that means the pocket's on this side on this one, but it's on the other side on the other one, if that makes sense. And these pockets are just big enough to take some fishing gear, so I got a wee bit of fishing gear with me as well. And then these ones, these are military surplus used, and they're not so brilliant. They're a bit soft, and they were a wee bit smelly when I got them, to be honest, but leaving them out in the sunlight, the ultraviolet seemed to kill off any odours or any odour causing bacteria or whatever it was, so they're a bit better now. This one here, I've got some bike spares. I thought it prudent to carry some bike spares, although the creaking and groaning today suggests that maybe I've not got enough. We'll see how we get on tomorrow. And then on the other side, I've got my entire food supply. So because I'm not particularly remote, I didn't need to carry very much. Tomorrow, if I need a little bit of food, I can resupply. I can find a shop or something like that and grab a bite to eat if I need something. I do have some, I've got some nuts and raisins and stuff like that, so I'm probably okay. Water is the thing that might cause me a bit of trouble, but I've still got both of these bottles full. The other water that I was carrying is all gone now. And This is that little bar bag that I've got there. I don't know if you can see that. Well, I remove my helmet and you can see that wee bar bag there is actually, it's a US military water bottle holder, and I had it kicking around. Actually, it was given to me by a dear friend, so nice to bring this along. And it's just got my bits and pieces in it. It's got some toiletries and my toothbrush and stuff like that. This bag here, that dry bag, it's a wee bit of an extra, to be honest. I probably don't need that. My sleeping bag and my tent just sit on the top there, and I've got these straps. I've got two of these straps. Actually, one of them's round the tent just now because I'm going to go fishing when I stop blethering, and just in case there's a gust of wind conspiring to take my tent into the sea, I've put the strap around the pole and down onto a big boulder, so it's well pegged, but it's an extra bit of security just in case. But I actually put the tent in there, although it doesn't really need to go in there. It's got its own stuff sack. The reason that I carry that, it does actually protect the tent a wee bit from any rubbing that you might get on there, but I'm not really worried too much about that. The reason that I have it is because I'm carrying a lot of camera gear, and the camera gear's sensitive to moisture, and so if I get a downpour, which is also quite unlikely, I do have some place to put you. I can dismantle the camera and I can put it into that dry bag, safe and secure in the knowledge that it's not going to get damaged. So that's my wee setup. Oh, and I've got one or two tools there, so that's a concession to the modern world. That's a wee tool bag that I picked up a few years ago, so everything else is a wee bit ancient. Right folks, enough blethering. I'm quite keen to break out the fishing rod. The fishing rod's just held on with a couple of Velcro straps there, just a little bit of Velcro. There's a story to this Velcro. We'll continue this dialogue and tell you. I was heading across to the Slate Islands that are south of here, crossing the bridge over the Atlantic and then getting that wee mini ferry that goes across. And I was struggling to tie a fishing rod onto one of my other bikes, and there was a BT engineer waiting for the ferry as well, and he was watching me, and he couldn't endure my pain and suffering any longer as I tried to tie my fishing rod on, and he came out and he gave me a roll of this stuff. So I've still got that roll, and it's absolutely brilliant just for tying things on. So like a Velcro strap thing. So I don't know, I guess the engineers use it for securing cables or something. So my fishing rod's on with that. I've got a wee seat pad to sit on while I'm having my cup of tea. The reason that I didn't break it out and use it while I was having dinner and having my after dinner drink was because I was up and down moving the camera around so much. So there you go, the things that I do for the film. And if I had been sitting on it with all these gusty winds coming over, it would have ended up over there someplace, floating out to sea. So it's there if I need it later. Right folks, enough blethering. This is the third time I've said that. Is it? Let's get out and do a wee bit of fishing. I usually fish over the other side, folks, and sometimes I go away out to the point. But I'm feeling a bit lazy tonight, and just down here there's a pool that looks quite attractive. It's low tide, the high tide is not until, I think it's after midnight, closer to 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be tucked up in my sleeping bag by then. But this wee pool down there looks quite deep actually. I'm not sure if I can get down to it. Well, let's go and have a wee scramble on the cliffs and see if we can get down there and try a cast or two. And if it doesn't work, I'll go across to the other side. There's two inlets here, or two bays. So we'll try this one for a few minutes. We'll try and get to it, and then we'll try it for a few minutes if we get down there, and then we'll try the other one across there as well later on in the evening. I'm not going to bother hiking away out to the point. It's quite a long way, so let's let's go. See if there's any fish out there. You see me there, folks? I made it. You know what? Sometimes my fishing is actually more challenging in terms of scrambling and climbing than my hill walking. That's not a flippant comment, I actually mean that. Okay, let's see if this wee rod is going to do anything. Get over and show you. That was the first cast, folks. That's a beauty of a pollock. You see that okay? Unharmed. I'm going to put it back, but I thought, I don't know if you can see me there, I can't get a stance to show you. Let's see if I can get in a better position here. Be careful on these rocks. So I thought that pool was going to be quite a good spot. There you are, first cast. We just go back to the tent and listen to some tunes now. Have an easy night. I've come round to the other bay, folks. It's a wee bit windy around here, although I've got you tucked in a little crevice there so you're completely out of the wind. But it's a bit breezy over here. I'm not going to fish for long tonight, but I just wanted to try down this side as well. So we caught a fish on the other side. Let's see what's happening on this side. I'm talking about sides as if it's one bay, but it's actually two inlets, but separated by a narrow piece of land only a few hundred meters wide. Well, it's just as I thought, folks. There's a small pollock down the edge there. We'll let it go. Try one or two more casts and see if there's any bigger ones. Well folks, that was an enjoyable night on the fishing. I caught a couple of fish on camera. I got that decent sized pollock on my first cast, just over my shoulder there. And then I caught that wee pollock just over in that inlet there. And then I turned the camera off after that. But I did carry on fishing, and I caught two more small pollock, just wee ones. And I caught a, hope you can hear me, it's quite windy. I caught a medium size mackerel. Medium size, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I got a small mackerel, about that size. I did get one decent bite, a really hard hit, but I didn't land it. It didn't take. I don't know what it was. Maybe a bigger pollock. Anyhow, it was a bit of fun. It's a wee bit later than I planned to climb into my sleeping bag. It's about 10:15. The GoPro makes it seem a little bit lighter than it actually is, but it's definitely the gloaming now, folks. There's just a wee touch of red in the sky there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. But it's time to get into the sleeping bag. I might listen to a tune or two, drift off to sleep. I'll get back to you in the morning. Just going to leave my gaiters out here, just in case. Put them in my wee kitchen there, and that'll do. That'll stop them blowing away in the night. Right folks, bedtime. We'll get back to you in the morning. Morning folks. The bike's all loaded up. It was quite heavy rain this morning, so I didn't switch the camera on. I just broke camp, got myself sorted out, loaded up, and I'm good to go. So I'm going to switch the camera off again for a wee while folks, until hopefully the weather settles down, but I will check in with you in a wee while. So let me crack on for now. Well folks, I should have spent a bit more money on this bike of mine. And I burst a spoke on the track, the Carrera track. So Nick here from Rusty Cycles. The Rusty Cycle Shed in Oban has very kindly come to my rescue, and he's going to change the spoke for me, get me back on the road again, because I've still got a wee bit of this adventure to go. So the Rusty Cycle Shed in Oban. If you're needing a bike repair, this is the place to come. There we go, folks. We're up and running again. Sorry, this is just kind of handheld. Big thumbs up to Nick, thank you very much. If you're ever in need of bike care when you're in Oban, then Rusty Cycle Shed. Thanks very much, Nick, much appreciated. Thank you, thanks now. Well folks, I've left Oban behind finally. I was up quite early this morning, broke camp in the rain and scooted down the track to make the early morning ferry and got across and managed to get my bike repaired, so we're back on the road. I think that's the worst of the track cycling behind me, or the best of it depending on your point of view. It'll certainly be easier for the bike from now on. I have to be careful on steep hills that I'm not putting too much pressure on this rickety old wheel on the back. It was a beautiful repair that was done, but it is what it is. The bike is pretty old, the wheel is pretty old, so I only replaced the broken spokes. I didn't replace all the other ones. So, as I say, just got to be a little bit careful of steep hills, although I don't know when I'm going to encounter them. Well folks, we're getting there, we're making progress. Stopped off a few miles back, there's a wee shop. I had to deviate from my route to get to the shop, but I managed to get some fruit, and I realised I've got a fruit holder on my bicycle. Well, when I say I've got a fruit holder, it's good for bananas. I'm not sure it'd be much use for apples. So I'm looking for a place to pull over and rest up for a wee while and have a bit of late lunch. Let's see if we can find a place, but for now we'll keep rolling. We'll get down this beautiful track. So looking up towards Ben Schoolard, folks, and then looking down Loch Crerin and around eventually to Loch Linney, which is where we're heading, away down beyond that point there. So let's keep going, get across the loch and onwards. Well folks, I've left the cycleway behind and I'm on a wee single track road, a lovely little road actually, that heads down to Portappen. So, completely different style of filming on this wee trip, folks. Just to save me the time of stopping and setting up the tripod. The tripod's on the back there, can you see that over my shoulder? I'm back onto the track cycling again, but this track is pretty good and I'm taking it easy. No more breakdowns, hopefully. And I haven't got very far to go, to be honest, so we'll just roll down here nice and easy. And there's a point down here that I'm familiar with. I'm going to get the tent set up, get some pasta on the go, relax for a wee while. It's been an eventful day. Let me show you the view. So you're looking across. It's a bit breezy here, I'm not sure if I can speak to you very much. You're looking across to the island of Lismore, which is the flat green bit, and then beyond that you're looking across to the hills of Ardgour and Kingairloch and
and then coming right round you can see the hills of Mull away in the distance. I'm just cooking up a wee half portion of pasta, folks. It's quite late, but I don't want to go to my bed hungry, so I'm just going to have a wee bite to eat. I've got some pasta, some sauce, a little bit of cheese. In fact, exactly the same as I had last night. I'm just going to do a smaller portion tonight. I've also got my fishing rod, but I don't think I'm going to bother with a cast tonight. It's low tide. I've fished here before, and most of the fish that I've caught here have been from my kayak. It's quite difficult shore fishing here, especially at low tide, because the water's not very deep and there's a lot of weed around. So let me get back to this, get some food on the go. Morning, folks. I've got a busy morning. I've got about an hour and a quarter to get packed up. I've got the stove on the go there. I need to get a cup of coffee and an oaty biscuit for breakfast today, just a simple breakfast, because I've got to hightail it down the track, get to Port Tappin,
and then I want to get the sailing across to Lismore over my shoulder there, so I've got another boat to catch this morning. So let me crack on, break camp, quick cup of coffee, and we'll be out of here. Cheers, folks. I popped the stove on again, folks. I think I've got time for a second cuppa. So I've got 2 boats to catch today. I've got a boat, I've got to go north for a wee while to Port Appin, hop onto the wee boat. I've spoken to the ferryman, I know one of the ferrymen. I'm going to take my bike over on the wee boat and I'm going to cycle down through the island of Lismore, and I'm going to pick up the Calmac ferry and that'll take me back to Oban. So I've got a bit of a time schedule to follow today, but it's a pretty relaxed one. Should be able to get the camera on. I'm going to try that GoPro filming again. We'll see how we get on with it. Okay folks, that's me packed up, good to go. Just got to put the camera away, I've got to put you back in the bag. Get this bike hurled down the track there and see if we can make that boat. So let's go folks. So that's my wee boat, folks. That'll take me over to the island of Lismore, just a short hop. Then we'll get back on the bike, down through the green aisle, or the garden aisle. See if the rain holds off for us. So I'm a wee bit early. I'm only about 10 minutes early. I'm looking for the ferryman, he can't be far away. Lovely view of the hills of Ardgour over there. That's featured in a few of the recent videos. It's one of my favourite spots. Right, I better pop this camera away just now. Get ready for embarkation. Sailing off for an adventure. That's me onto the island of Lismore, folks. If you look across the loch there to the crag on the other side, I'm not sure how shaky all this is going to be for you. There's a wee point there, a wee skerry. I camped just next to the wee skerry, in fact, last night. So I'm going to cycle my way down through Lismore. I'm going to do a wee bit of exploring. And then I've got another boat to catch this afternoon that will take me back over to the mainland. So I'm getting happier and happier with this bike. Better be careful that I don't speak too soon. Seems to be running absolutely fine this morning.
touring on a budget. Well, that warmed me up, folks. That was a good climb on that track. It was a wee bit rough in places, but I was taking it easy. This old bike of mine's got quite a good range of gear, so there was no problem with the gearing. Just cycling pretty slowly to preserve the integrity of my old wheels. But that's it, the end of the track. The road is just there over your shoulder. Let me show you. And I'm going to cross in that direction there, going right across the island to the other coast, to the ferry point, to the ferry terminal. So I've still got a wee bit to do, but it's not far now. You may be wondering about this other layer. There's a pretty cold northerly wind blowing today. So it feels like I've been cycling into the wind for quite a long time. The wind has been a bit changeable. We're making progress, folks. Not so far now. I can see Loch Linnhe over your shoulders there. Let me show you. It's the end of the road, folks. I need a boat from here on in. Got a wee bit of waiting to do. I might break out the stove and have a wee cup of tea. Have a wee rest. Well folks, home safe, and the bike held up well. Overall, I give it a thumbs up. I'm quite pleased with it. It was particularly good on the road and maybe a little bit less so on the track. But it got me around, we had a wee adventure, and let's face it, if I hadn't broken down I wouldn't have met Nick and Oban, so it's all good. So hope you enjoyed this wee video, folks. It was fun to make, a little bit different cycling along holding the camera there, perhaps not the most exciting footage, but it certainly gave you a wee insight into what I was up to for 2 or 3 days with my old bike. So as always folks, thanks for viewing, very much appreciated, and I look forward to getting back to you on the next one. So stay safe, take care, bye for now, bye folks.